What should we want to hear from Tennessee football scrimmage happening tomorrow as we get closer and closer to this year's football season? What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to From the Bench Vols. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and welcome to our Friday edition of the show where we have a lot of Tennessee football to talk about today. We've got a special guest. Eric Cain of Locked On Vols is here to help us talk fall camp intel and more with us today. What should we want to see as Tennessee fans for Tennessee's fall camp scrimmage coming tomorrow? It's the second one. There's a lot up in the air right now. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about quarterback and wide receiver 3, defensive line. There's a lot to talk about, and Eric's going to help us with it today. But before we have him on the show, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, share it, all that good stuff. Make sure you are following the Instagram. I appreciate you guys for all the love we've been getting recently. And without further ado, let's welcome on Eric Cain. And everybody, please welcome on host of Locked On Vols, Eric Cain, to the show. He's been on the show before, and you guys really like that, so we figured we'd bring him on now as we've got a lot of stuff to talk about for fall camp. Eric, thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, as always, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a lot to talk about today. Tennessee will scrimmage tomorrow for fall camp, second fall camp scrimmage of the year. Obviously, there's a lot going on with fall camp. Everybody wants to hear about the quarterback, but I kind of wanted to pick your brain on some other position battles and stuff that's up in the air with this Tennessee team right now. As you know, Tennessee football is 15 days away, so we're right around the corner, and it's coming up on us quick. The first two things I want to ask you about is the defensive line and the wide receiver 3. You can start with the defensive line. Jim Knowles has said, and Ronnie Garner said that they were a bit inconsistent. We know we lost Chaz Coleman over the offseason. There's a lot of question marks in that defensive line room, but what are some bright spots and maybe some more question marks that you see with that defensive line group going into this week's fall camp scrimmage?
Yeah, I think the defensive line, everybody, I've got questions about the quarterback, of course, because we just haven't seen either one of them do it, obviously. So there's questions there. It doesn't mean that they're going to be horrible or bad or anything. We just don't know. But putting the quarterback aside, I don't have any, there's not a position on the field for Tennessee that I have more questions about than the defensive line. I don't know. They had players last year and they were pretty good for half the year and then they just were awful. And, you bring in Chaz Coleman to help address the pass rush. And of course, he's not here anymore. And you've got a couple of edge rushers that you feel good about, like Jordan Norman coming over from Tulane. I thought him and Chaz Coleman would work really, really well together. Now you're counting on him to be the dude. And Tyree Weathersby on the other side's been here. This will be his 4th year. And man, he's got it. He's got it all. You just got to put it together. Can this be the year that you put it together? Tennessee hopes so, right? You got Marion Dye, a second-year player that you feel good about. But, outside of those 3, in terms of the edge, the Leo, the defensive end, and, Leo, I think we should just, not even call it that anymore. I know they might still call it that. But, as we go along in the Jim Knowles defense, he's going to have bigger defensive ends. So that the traditional, 240, 250 Leo, tall, slim, excellent burst, pass rusher, that's the old defense. Now, you still need to be explosive and rush the passer and strong and all that, but weighing 270, 280, you're going to be a bigger defensive end type guy. So anyway, defensive ends like those 3, and then who else? I don't know. Kedrick Golson, a true freshman, he had a really good spring. I think he's coming along in fall camp. I do believe that Jim Knowles is going to have to be creative in generating a pass rush. Part of that is I think David Hobbs will bump out and play some end. Remember, Don Bailey was in. He bumped inside to play defensive tackle last year. Yeah. I think David Hobbs is going to bump out at points in times. In order to do that, he's got to stay healthy. Nathan Robinson's got to stay healthy. I love the defensive tackle spot with those 2 guys. They got to stay healthy, but Xavier Gilliam and Ethan Utley and Isaiah Campbell and J.J. Finch is a freshman that I think is going to be pretty good. If they can stay healthy, I think they're pretty good at defensive tackle. But I think in terms of generating a pass rush, you're going to bump David Hobbs out at points in times. Then I think you're going to play multiple linebackers. I think you'll play 3 linebackers at a time, maybe 4. Arion Carter is a guy that I think can rush off the edge. I think Jeremiah Thielander, because he's so strong, as a guy that I think can play on the edge a little bit. Those guys aren't defensive ends, but they'll be package players. And I think that's kind of what you're going to see in terms of rushing the passer. So again, defensive line, I've got a lot of questions. It doesn't mean that they're going to be horrible, but it's kind of make or break time for a lot of those guys. Hobbs, Robinson, Weathersby, Norman again, because it's first year here.
Yeah.
And they got to step up, and Tennessee absolutely needs them to step up, because that's a big, as Jim Knowles put it week 1 or day 1 of fall camp, it's a question and time will tell. It's a big time question.
Yeah, for sure. And, everybody wants to talk about how good the linebackers are and how the secondary is much improved. And we're going to see a big jump from Ty Redmond. And all that's great. Like, I think that we have a lot of talent back there, and a lot of depth at all those positions, especially in the secondary. But if your defensive line isn't working, those guys can only cover for so long. And I think you're right. It's a big question mark. And again, it doesn't mean that they're going to be bad at all. It's just a big question mark to see how Jim Knowles is going to scheme guys up, if he's going to bring guys in from the secondary to blitz, guys like Quay Moss at that star position or in the slot. Obviously, he's a very athletic guy. We've seen the amount of muscle that he's put on with Derek Owings, and it seems like we can say that for just about every player. But we have heard that Arion Carter from himself, that we're going to see him some off the edge. You're right with a guy like Jeremiah Thielender. Can we see him off the edge? David Hobbs. I think that's really the biggest key is David Hobbs. And I know Josh Ward talks about that all the time on your Ward Wednesday edition of your show. He always talks about David Hobbs. If David Hobbs can stay healthy for this Tennessee defensive line this year, that is the biggest what if in my mind, because we've seen the kind of player that he can be when he's healthy. He just always has a nagging injury at some point. It sucks because he was a 5-star coming in out of high school. We heard good things about him his freshman year. Last year when he was on the field, he was really productive, but he couldn't. The foot injury just kept nagging at him. So I think that's the biggest question mark of it all is, can David Hobbs be healthy? Because obviously he's going to be big for that defensive tackle spot, but we're going to need him getting to the passer as well. And it's going to kind of be a all hands on deck type of deal. You're right. We're going to need to see some production from, I don't want to say second year leaps, because it seemed like Nathan Robinson's been here longer than that, and guys like that have been here longer than that. But we just need to see more production than there was last year, because you're right. For half of the year, they were an incredible defensive line. And then after the Alabama game, or at the Alabama game, it seems like they just stopped playing football. So you're right. It's up in the air for sure on the defensive side of the football. But it's just like Jim Knowles says, only time will tell. We can sit here and talk about what guy we think is going to play at what position, but we're not going to know until really week 2. Obviously, no knock on Furman, but when we've got to play a real opponent that shows some threat to Tennessee, how is Jim Knowles going to scheme those guys up to get to the quarterback? Secondly, I want to talk about that receiver position, because you've said it on your show too. Like, really, the wide receiver 3 position is just as close as the quarterback. There's 3 guys that really have a lot of talent. And one thing I've talked about a lot on my show is, obviously, yes, all 3 guys are talented, but I feel like they all 3 bring something different to the table. And that's what I think makes this competition so interesting. Like, Travis Smith is not the same player as TK Keys by any stretch of the imagination. We've heard Kelsey Pope rave about Travis Smith's physicality, called him a Goliath of that wide receiver room. So give me a little bit of your insight. What do you think? Who do you think is going to be that wide receiver 3, and how do you think we could see it play out going into this season?
Well, right now I think it's a rotation, because I don't think any of those guys have like grabbed it. And I don't think that'd be the end of the world. Like, we've never really seen that here at Tennessee. Typically they have 3 guys and they just go, and maybe that's how it is for week 1, week 2, and then one of those guys does take it, and then it's 3, and then a guy that rotates in there. I think TK Key is going to rotate in all year long. Like, maybe he might not, like, if he doesn't start, like, maybe he's not getting 15, 20 snaps a game, but like, he's a 5-star. There's an investment there. You don't want him to leave. So like, you're going to have to like force feed him a little bit. Like, that's just kind of the nature that we're like the business we're in. But like, Travis Smith really intrigues me. He was the highly publicized recruit coming in 2 years ago. He was a top 60 national recruit. And Darius Jackson like was a 4-star from Memphis. And like, he was really, really good, Mr. Tennessee football and all that, but nobody talked about him. And then you get here in spring and it's like, oh man, this rah-rah, like, he's going all, he's good. And then he like passed, if you will, if there was ever a pecking order of him and Travis Smith in fall camp, and Jackson got in the games, before Smith did last year. So, but with spring and in fall camp, to this point, I don't think Darius Jackson is like taking advantage of the lead that he kind of had, if that makes sense. And Travis Smith on the other side has had a great fall camp. He's been really good. And I have questions like, is that going to last? Is that going to be sustainable? Will he go MIA in games? I don't know. I still think I'm more comfortable with Darius Jackson. But it's not like he's been bad in camp. He's had a bad day here and there, but like, Travis Smith's had the best camp so far. And then you got TK Keys, who's going to be better than both of them, right? But are you further along? Like, he was still limited a little bit to start fall camp. He was not full go at all in spring ball. And like, he's going to be a stud, but how quickly can you get there? So for me, what I'm looking for on Saturday is like, can one of you guys, just like the quarterback, and I know we'll talk about that here in a moment, can one of you guys like take that job and like own it? Like, can you go out there and say, okay, without a doubt, it's me. I'm him, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that to happen. Even if one guy has a good game, I think they'll rotate a little bit with that wide receiver number 3 because again, Mike Matthews is playing every snap, Braylon Staley's playing every snap. You can rotate in that other spot, like that's fine until one of them really does grab it. But in the scrimmage, can one of those guys just say, "Hey, I've arrived. It's me."
Yeah.
I'll be intrigued to kind of see what that looks like. Right now, I'd probably say Rodarius Jackson be out there, snap number 1, but I don't know, man. Travis Smith has had the best camp of all 3 of them. So again, scrimmages tell a lot. Travis Smith, really, it was Tyreek King and Mike Matthews who balled out in scrimmage number 1, and Mike Matthews had a fantastic camp. So, like, I don't know, dude. I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah.
None of those guys have really staked claim to it. Travis Smith's probably had the best camp, but I still don't know if he's going to be a starter, if that makes sense. Maybe the scrimmage will tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, like we've talked about it a lot here on my show is you're right. Nobody's come out and grabbed it by the neck like you want them to, but I've said time and time again, because me personally, like I think the pecking order for me, and again, we're not in the room, we're not Kelsey Pope, we're not Josh Heupel. The way I've talked about it on my show is I've got it Travis Smith, TK Keys, Rodarius Jackson. But I'm not saying that's going to be week 1, but by week 5, that's kind of how I see it. Simply because Travis Smith brings something that these guys don't, and that's the physicality and that's the size, and he just brings something to this team that we had with Chris Brazzell last year. And I'm not saying he's going to come out and be a Biletnikoff level SEC receiver like Chris Brazzell, but he can come out and bring that size and bring that physicality, and with the wide splits that Josh Heupel runs, and we know their running game is going to be such a key part of this offense getting going. Can we see the physicality that we keep on hearing about with Travis Smith, polish in the run game, just small stuff like that. But if you have Rodarius Jackson at 3, it's like you said, he hasn't necessarily done anything to lose it. Like, it's not like Rodarius Jackson's come out, and you're right, he did kind of have the lead, if you will, coming into fall camp, and it's not like he's come out here and just stunk up the place in fall camp. It's a good problem to have, to say the
Mm-hmm.
least. And it's not really a situation like defensive line where you're worried if there's going to be production. There's going to be production at this wide receiver position for Tennessee. They're returning 2 800-plus yard receivers for Tennessee last year. And that's the thing, too, is I feel like sometimes people get too caught up in the production returning from last year. Because especially in an offense like Tennessee, if you go back to about a year ago today, people would have told you that wide receiver was probably the worst position on this
Oh
football
yeah.
team.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there was a big question mark with Joey Aguilar, but Chris Brazzell couldn't stay healthy in fall camp last year. Braylon Staley, we heard good things in spring and fall leading up to his fall camp, and then he just kind of vanished because of injury and things like that. And then Mike Matthews entered the transfer portal in the offseason. Like, this was the biggest question mark for this Tennessee team. So that's the thing, too, is like you look at these stats and you see Rodarius Jackson had 9 catches for 90 yards last year, and Travis Smith had 3 receptions for 23 yards last season. It's going to be interesting to see when guys are healthy, what do they bring to the table that the other one doesn't. I think that's really just what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I think Travis Smith too. Like, and we both said it from a physicality standpoint. Like Cedric Tillman was a really physical wide receiver, and
Yeah,
Travis Smith is tall. He's not as big as Ced was, but like he's not lanky. Like he's his presence is different than the other twos, that's for sure. And he runs really fast, and he runs
yeah,
good routes. And from a blocking standpoint, screens, obviously blocking for the tailback and all that, he probably has the edge over the other two. Again, he's had a really good camp, so maybe he goes out in the scrimmage and balls out, and maybe there's no decision to be had. He's out there, snap number 1. Should surprise me. We'll just see how it plays out.
yeah, for sure. So that'll kind of lead us into our next segment. Is we've got our second fall camp scrimmage tomorrow. Obviously, you spoke a little bit about the wide receiver 3, but what do you want to see / hear coming out of this second scrimmage as we inch, 2 weeks or a week closer to the season starting in 14 days after Saturday scrimmage?
Well, it's kind of funny. Typically, the first, like for all the years that football's been around, like, you go through these scrimmages, and the first scrimmage, the defense owns the day typically, right? And then it's like the Empire strikes back in the second scrimmage, and the offense comes back, and it's kind of, it's kind of what you want to see. It's always a catch-22. Like if your offense has a good day, it's like, oh, the defense sucks, or defense has a good day, it's like, those freshman quarterbacks, they should have got somebody from the portal. It's always
Yeah,
that type of talk in fall camp. I think it's reversed now, even with young quarterbacks. Like defenses, in my opinion, defenses across the country, not just here, are such a hindrance, man, because you don't get a tackle anymore.
yeah,
And like they can say they tackle, and they do. And Jim Knowles has actually talked about like breaking down every single tackle, career tackle of everybody on the team, where they've been here, or they've been at Michigan, or wherever they've been. Like, and that's really interesting, kind of breaking down good tackle, good form, bad tackle, sideline tackle, missed tackles. Like, that's awesome, right? But like you have to do all that type of stuff because you can't just go out there and tackle anymore. And they do that some, but like even in the scrimmage, like you're still not tackling the quarterback. Josh Heupel said they went tackle to the ground over 50% of the scrimmage, but like, is that 51% or is that 99%?
Yeah.
There's such a discrepancy there. So like the offense had a day in scrimmage number one, and that really didn't shock me because I feel like now early in camp, from a tackling perspective, the defense is kind of behind because they don't get to tackle as much anymore. So in scrimmage one, Tennessee ran the crap out of the football, and that was kind of the theme. Like maybe not on the first team defense in terms of scoring or anything like that, but overall they ran the football and it was bad rush defense. Well, I want to hear that's improved. Like scrimmage number two, like that's got to improve. And again, I don't think it was necessarily first team defense that was like giving up all these, like the 99-yard run for DeJuan Morris. That was not the first team defense out there.
Yeah.
But I want to hear that the rush defense was significantly better in scrimmage too. And I think Tennessee's run game is going to be really good this year. I mean, Justin Baker's like fourth string running back. He can play places. Like he's a good running back, but like he's fourth in the pecking order here. So I think the running game is going to be good for Tennessee this year, but I want to hear that rush defense is better. Obviously the gimmies, and football is a contact sport. I get it, but like you hope and pray there's no injuries, right? I mean, Tennessee's had enough of those already in scrimmage. You hope that from a penalty standpoint, technically sound pre-snap penalties, it's pretty clean because again, you're getting closer to fall camp, and like you don't need to have all those in week number one, but they are kind of prevalent there. From a pass rushing standpoint, let me hear some names. Like you heard that they flashed a little bit in scrimmage one, but it really wasn't there the whole time around. Like need to hear. And like how much is Jim Knowles dialing it up? I don't know. He did. Like I talked to somebody and I know like he brought a safety blitz one time that led to a nice PBU for Dejon Lane. So he's doing some of those things, but like I want to hear pass rush showed up. But more so specifically for individual players, like I'm looking for Ori Williams to lock down his spot at right tackle, and I think he's well on his way. Looking for Trey Poteet, Tim Merritt to continue to come along and give depth at corner. Wide receiver 3, we already spoke on that. And then obviously quarterback, right? Like, can Faison solidify it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Is George going to make it really, really hard on Josh Heupel, who makes over $9 million a year?
Yeah.
That's the hope, right? And George McIntyre's not been bad in fall camp at all. It's just like whenever you get into these scrimmage-like settings, Faison makes plays. And you got the explosives. He had 3 plays of 30-plus yards in scrimmage number 1. Could have had a fourth one, I heard. But there was a drop. I think it was by Desan Brame, actually. So, like, can you make some plays? If Faison goes back out there on Saturday and does what he did last week, he might as well tell the team post-game huddle that it's Faison, in my opinion. So, want to hear about that. Want to hear if George makes it difficult. Those are some of the things I hope to hear because, of course, we don't get to see it. Hope to hear coming out of scrimmage number 2.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you're right. Like the run game, the offense, regardless, and I know that people from the outside looking in, people that don't follow Tennessee sports as much as me and you do, regardless of who's the quarterback this year, I know that this offense is going to be good because I've watched Josh Heupel coach for long enough. Whether that's at Tennessee, whether it's at UCF, no matter where he's at, the guy puts a really good offense on the field. I think me and you could go play quarterback and he'd figure out a way to put points on the board. So that's really not what I'm worried about. I'm with you. I want to see how this secondary and this depth and really this entirety of the defense is going to respond to the loss of Idris Farouk last week. Who's going to go take that spot? Obviously, DeJuan Lane's going to slide in there with TJ Metcalf opposite side of him. That's going to be the starter, in the broad sense. But obviously, we've heard good things about Dylan Lewis and other guys. Who's going to come up, like you said, in that secondary and kind of solidify some more of those depth pieces? Because regardless of how good Idris Farouk was last year, he had a great spring camp this past year. He had an even better fall camp. We just heard constantly good things from the team and from Jim Knowles and everybody in that facility that Idris Farouk had a great offseason. So it really does suck to see somebody like him go, especially for a guy who, it's not this system necessarily because they did revamp this entire defense, but he's been in this program. He knows what it's like to play in the SEC, so it just does stink losing a guy like that. But I'm excited to see who's going to come up and play that depth position because we've seen in the past, when the safeties were best for Josh Heupel, it was when they were rotating. When Will Brooks and Jacoby Thomas got to take turns, that was when this defense was the best. I'm not saying Will Brooks and Jacoby Thomas made that defense, top 10 in the country like it was, but it definitely helps. And we saw how good Will Brooks was for us. We saw how good Jacoby Thomas was for us, and then obviously we let him go to Miami, and now he's in the NFL.
It's funny, man. Jacoby Thomas was like, he wasn't even a starter. Like, it was Will Brooks and Andre Turrenton, and Jacoby rotated in, and like he wasn't. I mean, Tennessee would have liked to have kept him, but like to my understanding, he was like, "All right, this is what I'm worth. This is what I want." They're like, "Hey, man, good luck. Like we like to keep you. Good,
Yeah.
best luck to you." When got in Miami and he balled out, so like that one always stings. But like he was like, I mean, he was a rotational player. Like, and you're right. Like of all the years to not rotate a safety, like Will Brooks was actually your best one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm with you. Like they need to rotate. They need to have fresh guys back there. Dylan Lewis was kind of came out of nowhere in spring, and Sidney Walton played a ton last year, and then he got hurt towards the end of the year. Whereas Dylan Lewis kind of jumped him, but now Sidney Walton's back in that conversation because of the injury to Farouk. DJ Burks is a guy that's played a ton at Appalachian State. Can you play on this level consistently?
We'll see.
You're like the fifth option now, so I guess you got to be ready.
Yeah, for sure. And you spoke on it a little bit. It's what the people want to hear. I know you hear this. You see this in comments 100 times. I know I see it all over the place. What's your somewhat of a prediction on this quarterback battle, and where do you think it's going to go? Not necessarily just after tomorrow, but as we're 14 days, 15 days away from the season starting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Faison's well on his way. I think that I've heard he's practiced well this week coming off that scrimmage. I think that he would have to have a real bad couple of days, like tank the scrimmage, bad practice today, bad practice tomorrow, a couple Monday. I don't know. Like, I think that I mean, I'm not saying it's done because again, you got to go out there and scrimmage, and what an opportunity for George McIntyre. But I think Faison Brandon's well on his way. Is he going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Is he going to look like a freshman? 100%.
Yeah.
Is he going to make some plays for you, though, that like at a higher clip than maybe George would? Probably, because in scrimmage like settings dating back to spring, that's what he's been doing. Can his legs be a factor? Absolutely. Is he still slow at processing at times? Is he slow at getting the football out at times? But I've heard that that's something that George McIntyre struggled with during this fall camp. Like he's looked good, he's made all the throws. Like George has had a good camp, but it's like just getting rid of the football, and that's typical of a young quarterback, whether you're a redshirt freshman or a true freshman. So, I mean, based on everything I've seen, limited things when I've been there, and everything I've heard, especially coming out of the scrimmage, at this point, Will, like, barring he just tanks in scrimmage number 2, I would be surprised if he's not named Tennessee's quarterback. Now, they'll both play against Furman, but somebody's got to be out there first with the first team, and then somebody's got to go out there and play against Georgia Tech. And right now, again, scrimmage doesn't tell us everything. I would be surprised if it's not Faison Brandon, which is crazy, man. First time starting a true freshman out the gate, if that's how it works out, since I guess '04. It worked out pretty well that year, but he's unbelievably talented. He will make mistakes. Hopefully they don't cost you a game, but I mean, like going into a situation where you've got those receivers, got a good run game, got a great offensive line, he or George is set up to be successful in this offense. Just everybody says game manager is like an insult. No, it's not, especially for a freshman quarterback. Go out there, take chances, but take care of the football and rely on everything else around you. Just manage the game, and Tennessee will be good on offense. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. Week 1, obviously, we don't get to see the scrimmage, but if he does anything like he did last Saturday, again, like I said, Josh Heupel better just announce it on the field because it'd be over, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right with that game manager term, especially when you get into the NFL. Like people use that like it's a demeaning term. And maybe when you get to the NFL, like you have guys like Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, like they aren't game managers. But those 3 guys aren't playing in college football. If you have a guy who can just come in and not lose the game for his team, it's going to be hard not to be successful with arguably the best offensive line in the SEC, a top 3 running back in the SEC, a top 2 to 3 receiving core in the SEC. Like whoever it is going to be set up to succeed. You're exactly right. There's a lot of questions going into fall camp, or as we go through fall camp. There's a lot to be excited about, though, on Rocky Top nonetheless. Eric, I appreciate you for coming on this episode. If you don't already, go check out Locked On Vols wherever you listen to your podcast or on YouTube. Eric does great work, and he's a big help of mine, so he's a very good friend of the program. I appreciate you, Eric.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you.
And a huge thank you to Eric Cain for joining the show today on our Friday edition. I know I just said it, but if you don't already, make sure you guys are listening to his stuff wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Again, it's Locked On Vols. He makes great Tennessee football and Tennessee athletics in general content. He is a really good dude, and you guys should all go check out his stuff. But I think that's going to wrap it up for our show today. I appreciate all of you guys for joining me on this Friday edition. And before you leave, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, share it, all that good stuff. I will see you next week, and we'll have a whole lot to talk about as we get closer to Tennessee football season. I'll see you maybe this weekend, so stay tuned for that. But for sure on Monday, I'll see you next week in general, ladies and gentlemen, and go Vols.